Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I am your host, Matt Belair, and I am so excited to introduce today's guest. He is a poet, writer, and explorer of ideas. Everything he does is centered around the rebalance of the power structure to one that is harmonious, loving, and benefits humanity in its entirety. Writer and partner at the website Truth Theory, which is a solution-based news company that has reached over 10 million people in the last 3 months. Welcome to the show, Luke Miller. What's up, brother?
How's it going, brother, man? I'm excited to be finally having this conversation, man, after the technical issues we had last time.
A little bit of technical issues for sure. I think it was divine timing because you were in the middle of the jungle trying to find Wi-Fi at little coffee shops and things like that.
Yeah, bro, it was pretty insane. I mean, I was in the mountains. I was in the jungle before. That time I was in the mountains, but the Wi-Fi in Peru is got a mind of its own, man. Some days it goes down. If it wants to work, it will work. So yeah, it's good to be back to UK Wi-Fi, so we can do this properly.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. Well, that must have been quite an experience. I definitely want to touch on that because, even when we got to chat, you were right in the middle of it. You were going through your own process, experiencing just a lot of things. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you got to where you are today, the incredible work you've done with Truth Theory and what you're about, like how you got there? And then let's get into what brought you out to Peru. What was it like? I'm super curious, and we'll just get into all things.
Okay, man. Well, I guess the last few years have been pretty mystical and magical in terms of like synchronicities and all that kind of stuff. For a long time I was searching for something. So I knew that there was something out there, and I kept searching and searching and searching. When I was younger, I was like always trying to start up little businesses, and all this kind of stuff, failing very miserably. Ideas in the wrong place a lot of the time and stuff, but the moment I kind of got into like meditation, started to like submit and just go with the flow of life, things really started to tune in. And how I got in touch with Truth Theory was I wanted to hit like certain milestones. I had like all these ideas I wanted to share, and they were a little bit cluttered and all over the place. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to send off a bunch of guest blogs to different blogs to kind of try and get my message out there. And I had a big list of blogs, loads of blogs I'd written. And the first one I sent off to a guy, the guy who runs Truth Theory, called Mike. And it turns out he lived like 5 minutes away from my house. And, the article that I'd written was about education. He had like this education product he was working on, and it kind of just like really worked. He was like, we need a writer. I ended up working for them, and it kind of just went from there, and everything's kind of synchronistically and magically kind of fallen into place since then. I kind of took over the running of things for a while they were working on other things, and yeah, it just kind of came together, and I just found it really magical and synchronistic because every single person I've spoken to since, like from Collective Evolution, Educating Inspired, all these different places, they're all in America or Canada or whatever, and the one blog I sent off to, the guy's like 5 minutes away from my house, so it kind of mystically kind of came together, and that's how I ended up starting writing for Truth Theory, and since then, I've had like a lot of like kind of mystical experiences and deep experiences that have like really made me think, yeah, this is my path, sharing information. And what we want to do is create news that is based in solutions, man. We have so much bullshit news at the moment that is just like death, destruction, everyone's going to die, we're going to blow all shit up. Here's the weather, it's like, what the fuck? Like, how the fuck is anyone supposed to like deal with that? It's just like doom, gloom, misery onto the next, and it's like, well, what we're trying to do is offer some kind of like solution, like, okay, there is problems in the world, there are bombs going off, there are this, but you know what, we can stand up, we can stand together, and we can come unite against this kind of stuff, because people make change, like, because people have the ability, like, individually we have massive potential, but when everyone kind of bands together and the ideas align, man, then we have like and true power. You know, like we often forget that we're the ones that vote in the people letting off the bombs and all this kind of stuff. You know, and if we want to come together, we can, man. We can make it work. You know, so yeah, that's kind of the basis of it. You know, I know that there's a solution to all problems. You know, I know that for every problem there is a solution. You know, there may be complex solutions, and it's not as simple as ABC 1, 2, 3, but we can make it happen. You know, and we are making it happen. The conversations are changing, things are really changing, and you know, we're in a place where information flows very freely, whereas before it was very very controlled. Now it flows a lot more freely. So you know, we're making progress.
That's amazing. And with the reach that you're getting and with what you're putting out there, it's our solution based. And that's, you know, the law of attraction. For me, when I coach an athlete, right? So my background's in coaching athletes. And if you say, I don't want to fall when you do a backflip, well, that's putting all that focus there, right? So if you don't want a bomb dropped on your head and you're continuously getting that information and that imagery, there's no solutions, right? But when you start to think about what you want, what can we do? How can we contribute and coalesce and band together? You know, now just websites like yours and Evolve and Ascend and Collective Evolution, we can reach a lot of people with these solutions, and then we can actually start to do something about it from wherever we are. So it's, what you're doing is incredibly important.
Yeah, awesome, man. And it says what you just touched upon with the law of attraction, I find very interesting, because that was something that come to me in my ceremonies. A lot of things like kind of just come, and it's the law of attraction works in 3 ways: through fear, through love, or through force. You know, and fear is obviously, you know, bullshit way. You know, you don't want to be like scared of everything because you're going to bring that in. You know, to your field. Love for me is the best way, but force is sometimes a little bit needed, you know, like to push things through and really kind of make things happen, you know. But a lot of people are stuck in the fear mentality, you know, and that's a real kind of duality, you know, the fear and the love, you know. It's like the two ends of the spectrum, you know, and it's like at the moment that is what news perpetuates, fear, you know, and it's manifesting more of the same, you know. And we want to kind of move towards love and ideas, you know. Like, why can't we share ideas that, you know, that's how things start, you know, like a lot of the things that I personally share a little bit out there and stuff, you know, but ultimately that's how things start, right? You gotta look at the idea and not shut it down straight away, have an open mind to things, and, you know, know that we know nothing. We don't know anything, you know. And the more you learn, right, the more books you read, the more teachers you get, the more mentors, the more you realize you know nothing, you know. Every book opens up like another 10-20 boxes, you know. You're like, shit, man, why do I keep learning? Because I keep realizing I know fucking nothing, you know. So that's been my experience anyway, you know. Like, the more I'm learning, I'm just like, what this is vast, this universe, man. There's so much going on here, right? So yeah.
Yeah, man, 100% spoken like a man that's just come back from an ayahuasca ceremony. And well, it's true, because when we can come with that open mind, it humbles us, you know. And then you realize, like, one example I remember, I was on a psychedelic journey, one of the best ones ever, with my best friend on mushrooms. And you know, we did it in a ceremony, so ayahuasca, so we are doing ceremony, but it expands our mind, so we're having these intense dialogues and thoughts, and we would have these deep conversations, and we realized that we had to choose what we were going to talk about because it was so infinite. And we're like, you could have a lineage of like trees, you know, just trees. Your great grandfather studied trees, and his grandfather, his and it comes to you. You study your whole life for 100 years, you still wouldn't know probably like 99% of what there could be known about trees, right? So you get humbled, and it's super important. So I think that's a really important part, because when we can open to another perspective, we don't have to shut it down. We can look for the truth and then focus on what is it that we want to share. How can we contribute? Because you can complain and bitch and moan, and you can also look towards the solutions, find connections and collaborations at the exact same time.
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, it's really interesting, you know, like the what you said about the trees, you know, that's the kind of metaphor that I kind of think of all the time, you know. It's like you can be an expert in a fraction of a subject, like just a tiny little piece of a subject, not even a full subject. Like if you're a doctor, you're not going to know what all there is to know about doctors. You could work on the heart, for example, or a valve on the heart, and you learn, you read, it evolves, everything keeps going, and you never know anything, and then you pass that down and they don't really know anything. Like it's kind of like, again, it's like the duality, like I've been thinking a lot about duality recently. It's like there's we're infinite but we're finite at the same time. We're like we're significant but we're totally insignificant. Like if you think of us in space and time and everything, like the little fraction of time we're occupying now, and the infinite amount of time there is this way, the infinite amount of time there is this way, and what we can achieve in the vast scale of the universe, it's like, well, we can't really do that much, but at the same time we can do fucking everything, man. We can do everything. We are everything, because like if you think of like the Big Bang was like an explosion. We were like one singular particle that kind of exploded and expanded outwards, and like everything that ever is or ever will be in this dimension came from that single atom that kind of expanded. So it's like, shit, we're infinite, we're nothing, it's just like this mad kind of like multi-dimensional understanding that I have of things, but it's like, yeah. So I think you can find your true power in accepting that you're insignificant, and it's like, it's like we don't matter that much, like when you're having a shitty day, it's kind of like, well, in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter that much? It's like we're here, this moment will pass, and the next moment will happen, and that'll be gone, so it's kind of like, yeah, real kind of paradoxes going on and stuff, and a lot of that's opened as a result of these psychedelic experiences. It's almost like my conversations turn into riddles these days. It's kind of like, and we bounce off of each other, and we try and work out the complexities of what's going on, and it's just like, fuck, man. It used to be a lot more simple than this.
Yeah, well, what that makes me think of this old Zen story where they talk about this too shall pass, where he's going through, and it's like happiness, and this too shall pass, and it's the worst moment of his life, and he's like, this too shall pass, and that's basically it. Wherever you are, it will pass. It's the only constant is change. And then the other fundamental that you're bringing up, I think, is surrender. That's that idea. So Alan Watts says you give it all away to get it all back, and that's kind of the duality and the conundrum of that. And that's surrender. You surrender to the unknowingness. You can't know everything, but then you're also a creator at the same time. So then you're like, so it gets confusing. So in that confusion, with those two statements of surrender and duality, where do you bring it back to? Where do you find that, with that thought, where does it come back to harnessing your own power, so to speak, and taking that knowledge and applying it a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, for me, my understanding and recent understanding of like duality is, I've got a thing with numbers, right? So I might start talking number, because numbers, from my understanding, numbers are a language that was not created, was discovered, right? So we discovered numbers, whereas every other language is created to box in, the words and stuff. And there's like numbers in many different forms, but one thing, to no matter which country you're from, or if you're an alien or whatever, one thing is one thing, two things is two things, three things is three things. It's kind of like an understanding that everyone can kind of agree upon, even if you use different words for it. So my understanding of duality is the transcendence of duality comes in understanding that duality is not a duality, it's a trinity. Every duality has its middle ground, so if you think of two ends of the pole, it's like hot, cold, it'll be freezing cold, boiling hot, at levels that you don't want to be. If you find the central ground of warmness, you found like something that's kind of manageable and bearable, and which you can live within. And I feel that everything kind of has this middle ground or opposing force. And this is my understanding of like what alchemy is. It's like kind of it doesn't just work on like substance, because people think of alchemy as the turning of lead into gold, and I think of that as like a metaphor for the purification of like the most dense, heavy, solid thing into something pure, you know. And I think that understanding the transcendence of duality comes from understanding the middle ground of duality, which is like the Trinity. But then that comes back to a singularity, because it's like two ends of the pole and the central pole, but it's one pole, man. So it's like duality, Trinity, singularity. It's easy as 1, 2, 3, but you know, it took me a while to kind of get it all together, you know. But that's my understanding of duality and how we transcend it is by sometimes, like for example, masculinity and femininity. Sometimes you have to step into the masculine, you know, and the rigid and the organized and everything, and then you have to step into the more feminine, creative, and kind of things in like extremes. That's what happened for me. I stepped into both extremes to try and find a more central point, you know. And I think sometimes that's what we have to do, you know. And there is this for everything, you know. I think like everything in the physical is like dual, you know, and has like opposing forces and stuff, you know. So it's kind of like, I guess it comes down to what we were saying again about trees. You know, if you're the guy who knows about the trees, you have to kind of step into one side of it, into the other side of it, to kind of fully merge it and try and understand what it means in its entirety. You know, and yeah, but some dualities are really, really simple, like hot, cold, and warm, and some are really, really complex, like lead and gold and whatever. You know, like obviously that's hard to work out, right? You know, so. But I think it works with a good way to work this like on like a physical level, you know, so you can actually use it for your day-to-day life, is like through mental alchemy, you know, like by I'm feeling this and this is the opposing force to it, you know, and I can use this to overcome this, you know. And don't get me wrong, sometimes we feel like crap and we don't feel like, you know, doing stuff and all that, you know, and it's not always wise to force through, because sometimes you miss what the underlying issue is and the problem is, you know, and sometimes you have to sit with pain and suffering and all this kind of stuff to fully understand it. But sometimes we need to pull ourselves out of a certain situation, you know, and I feel like when you understand the opposing force of it, you can step out of that, you know, and try and find the middle ground somewhere between the two to live a life that's more harmonious, you know. Yeah.
Man, yeah, dude. Well, way to go, man. I love that. You dropped a lot of interesting knowledge there, and I was actually able to follow your analogy of the spectrums in the middle ground. It's very difficult to put into words. You know, I have Alan Watts' book behind me, The Way of Zen, and I thought it was going to be an easy read. It was so challenging, but there's after in there where he's describing it. It's like, you know, a knife cut itself, and he has all these different analogies to describe something that's so far beyond thought. It's really hard to grasp. But if you look at like the yin yang symbol, you know, you've got white and black, you know, negative and positive. It's in all things. We are in a dimension of duality, but we're also in a dimension of free will where we get to choose it. It's not pushing it away that it doesn't exist. It's what do we want to participate in? And when you talked about alchemy, that was super epic, because the way that I understood alchemy was a friend of mine, and Terrence McKenna talks about it as well. And basically, it's a physical emotional alchemy. So if you turning lead into gold, well, you turn anger and frustration and depression and pain, and you take that energy, that lead, and when you can transform it through forgiveness or awareness or compassion, that's why in Buddhism compassion is so huge, then you can transform that energy to something good, to something positive. You've actually got the energy to use. So the way that I see alchemy is literally transforming emotion, and that's all we're doing all the time. And we have both sides that we can choose from. They both exist. We could go sign up. I could sign up for the Canadian military. You could sign up for yours, and maybe you and I are in war to shoot people getting legs blown off. That's an option. But we could also look at, okay, what can we do in this shite show of what's happening, and how do we want to contribute to bringing forth some light, to bringing forth what we want to contribute.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, and it's okay, so go on, bro.
no, I was going to see if you wanted to comment. We have like a little bit of international lag, but yeah, I'll let you comment and then I'll have a question.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to say, what did you say now? Oh yeah, something about stepping into like certain parts of the emotions. I think what's important about that, if you step into like the real kind of darkness, you know, like it allows you to serve in a way that people who haven't stepped into that can't, like, and it's really interesting, like a lot of people I've been meeting recently who are like healers and like spiritual teachers and people who are doing really, really good things or working in like the most darkest of like corners of the world, like to like bring light to them places. They've often suffered, like in a way that most people haven't suffered. And when you feel that, people often look at their problems as a burden, but your problems often lead you to your work. It's like they bring you, it's like, okay, I've suffered immensely, like, I've been through this experience. I can actually talk to this person who's going through this in a way that no one else can, because no one else can understand them in the way that I can, because I've experienced it. So I think that's another kind of way to alchemize, is that the word? Yeah, to your issues. It's like, use that to, is your pain going to help you on your life's path? Maybe it is. Not everyone wants to stay in their pain and live in their pain, and that's not for everyone. But for some people, to be able to transmute that into something beautiful, it's like it can really, really help, overcoming it. And also it can turn something really dark, like say you've experienced abuse or something, and you manage to help thousands of people who have been through abuse. Your one case of abuse has managed to help 1,000 people, and it's kind of like you've transmuted that into so much a gift to so many people. So yeah.
100%, man. It's interesting because I just got off a phone call today. Somebody had reached out. There's this athlete. He's a professional snowboarder and he wants to go to the Olympics, and he's from Uganda, but he lives in the USA. And he had a really messed up childhood. His name's Brolin. So he's on Trans World. So he talks about it a little bit, and him and I had a conversation. And basically, what we consider a hard life in Canada or North America is nothing compared to what this guy went through. Nothing. And he's we had a little psychology talk about performance for sport, but his vision is so far beyond snowboarding. He wants to be the first person from his country to go to the Olympics to inspire the country. So it's so far beyond just him wanting to get a gold medal. And one of the things he talks about is like being worthy and good enough because of the crazy experiences he has, because he's so lucky. He's like, why am I the lucky one that escaped this? Like, I'm lucky to live past 18. I'm thinking, oh my God. And so what I expressed to him is exactly what you just said. I was like, look, man, you're the only one that can get through this. And when you do, you're going to be such an inspiration to everybody that has had this experience, because only you have that power. You can hold on to the pain and the hurt and all of that for as long as you like. But also when you transmute this, man, like Uganda, all these other countries that are going to see your story and how you transform. And that's what we have to do. So what a unique circumstance. So where I want to go with this is, ayahuasca, and there's a bunch of stories that I have. I know that you're coming fresh off a very epic experience. Do you want to share a little bit about what brought you to do ayahuasca? I think you had done it before. I'm not 100% sure, and maybe dive into some of the lessons you learned.
Okay, I can share the story actually. I suppose we've got time. Let me just share the link on the Facebook page of the place I went to, because that would be good. But the whole experience with me drinking ayahuasca was very synchronistic and mystical. So I must have been 2.5 years ago now. I was reading a book called what's it called? Plant Spirit Medicine. I can't remember. I think it was called Plant Spirit Medicine. And I wasn't quite as deep down the rabbit hole as I am now. Like, I was pretty far, like, in terms of rabbit holes. I was pretty deep down there. But yeah, I wasn't quite where I'm at now. Like in terms of what I see possible with the spirit world and all this kind of stuff. But I was pretty much getting there. I was experiencing a lot of synchronicity and all this kind of stuff. And I was reading this book called Plant Spirit Medicine, and asked for like plant spirits, you ask them to come to you in your dreams, you know. So I asked for these plant spirits to come to me in my dreams, and I got these like visions of certain herbs and plants that were near to me, like local ones and stuff, you know. And it was like, okay, well, let me just go and get some of them herbs, you know. And I started drinking them, and I had this. So I started to like realize that these plants have spirits, you know. And it's like, okay. So I done this meditation, this like shamanic drumming. I had like my headphones in and all this kind of stuff, and I like went like really, really deep, you know, like in terms like, I mean, you can adventure quite deep like without the help of any substances or anything, and I went like really, really deep. I actually like started to vomit and all sorts, like started to purge just through like sitting through shamanic meditation and drumming, you know. And it's like, okay, wow, some stuff's happening, you know. I can feel some real stuff happening, you know. And I'd watched a documentary about a shaman, a local shaman. So at the time, I was with my girlfriend, who's my ex now, and I was like, you know, I need to speak to this shaman. I think like, so that I really think we need to have a conversation, because I've got some shit going on. I don't really know what the fuck's going on, but some real stuff is going on me. Like I can feel it in my body physically. I can like, I'm purging. I don't know what's happening, you know. And so I spoke to her, and then that evening I was speaking to my brother, and I was like, you know, when we finish on this call, I'm going to speak to the shaman, because I like and just reach out and see what she says, you know. And we never had any conversation, communication or anything like that before, you know, but I'd added her on Facebook like a year before, after I watched her documentary. So when I come off of this call with my brother, I went on Facebook and there was a message from the shaman. I was like, what? You know, about something completely different, you know. It's like she'd seen me posting a ayahuasca group about guest blogging, you know, but it was kind of like, what, how can she have messaged me like at this time, you know? So we ended up starting a dialogue and like went back and forth a little bit. And, you know, that was kind of like, I was like, okay, I think I'm supposed to go. Like she had like these retreats and stuff. And I was like, you know, I think I'm supposed to go. And then it was like, that was when I started to like a dialogue with ayahuasca almost, you know. It was kind of like I was having dreams and visions, and, you know, it's not like what people would think, you know, like some big grand vision of stuff. It was just like feeling, you know, like I've like certain, I knew it was the vine, the ayahuasca vine that was communicating with me. It was like I could feel it, you know, like I could feel like this fierce presence, you know. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the Amazon, you know, like it's going to happen. And then I don't know, it was like 6 months or so later, last minute, she posted on Facebook that she had someone drop out of for a ceremony in the Amazon, and I was like, save me the spot, I'm coming, you know. I didn't really have any money at the time, and I was like, shit, man, like I've said I'm gonna come, like how am I gonna get this together? And by the end of the day, I managed to like magically get the cash all together from somewhere, from different people and stuff, you know. Done some sales on my site and stuff, and that was it, you know. I went to the rainforest, and a place called the Rainforest Healing Center. I'll put a link on there. I meant to do this a minute ago. But yeah, that was something came to me, like, you know, they say, let me just put this up here, this link, so people can see it. Something came to me after that experience. It was, they say, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And to me, like, I thought that is a very nice saying, but then it was kind of like, it's not the destination, it's a journey, but there's many destinations on the way. And that was a destination that I arrived at. When I kind of reached that place, when I reached that center, I was like, shit, you know, I've arrived somewhere magical. And it was like, I felt this like really, really strong presence of like being somewhere, you know, that I was supposed to be. And yeah, like, leading up to that, it was just like the rabbit hole goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then, you know, when I actually drank that ayahuasca, I was like, wow, you know, this rabbit hole goes far deeper than I ever imagined, you know. And it was like actually sitting there with like physical beings and stuff, you know. It wasn't just like the visions, it was like being in a different world, sitting underground with all these like beings and stuff like communicating, and it was like, okay, man, this is not just like a psychological psychedelic kind of thing, this is like a different world that you can enter, And then I kind of expected my other experiences to be like that, but I kind of realized quickly that every time you drink is very different, so you enter different worlds and different places and different things, and yeah, I had a lot of realizations. One of the things that happened to me, I think it was after my second ceremony, was the numerology thing. Like I learned how to interpret numbers like overnight. Like it was like I didn't know numerology the night before, then I woke up and I did, and it's kind of like, okay, and it was like my body changed, like physically I was doing movements that I've never done before, I started to like do handstands and like these like lizard movements and all these different things, and it was like, as it kind of unfolded, it was like, this is a consciousness. This wine is not, it's not, I mean, mushrooms are powerful, and all these different things, they are powerful, very, very powerful in DMT. But this was like, it comes to you and it transforms you, and you like, not everyone who does it, because I've met people who do it too much and, like who really kind of overdo it and stuff, but if you're respectful and you kind of communicate and have a dialogue, it really kind of helps you in the most messed up, mysterious, magical of ways, So yeah, that was my first experience of the first 5 ceremonies I'd done over 10 days, and that was really like, it felt like an initiation into a different world, into a different like level or a different consciousness, So yeah, but yeah, that's my story.
Amazing, man. Yeah, no, that's what it's like. It's something that's so indescribable. I got to think of a new analogy because I keep using the same one, but I say it's like a duck's consciousness to a human's consciousness to wherever we go. So, or a dog, or even bigger gap than dog could be like even like a fish, man. Who knows? But it's where you go and what you experience is, for me, more real than here. It's in a place that there's no words to describe it. So when you come back and you're a duck, you're just quacking at people because there's no language for it.
Yeah.
But what I love about it, for me, what happens mostly when you sit around a circle, people want to be more loving and kind to themselves for the most part, and they want to be more loving and kind to others, and they want to be of service. They kind of really rethink and recalibrate their life, because it's in a way, it's a death experience. It's a reset. It shows you, reality and what is possible in a ceremony, in another dimension of understanding. And it's true. It's whatever you experience is an experience of consciousness, an expansion in truth. Feels like you want to comment.
Yeah, no, it's just what you're saying about recalibration, like that it's like that, just mentally, physically, and spiritually. But physically, on my first experience, it was like my back started to click, and started to like go into place and stuff, and it was like, wow, like my body's like actually moving, and like really kind of like purging, not just through like vomiting, because you vomit, but it's like you're releasing, but you purge, like your body moves. I mean, not just necessarily for everyone, but for me, like my body moves and I make like sounds, and it's just like you kind of shake and you do all these things, and you're like, what's going on? It's like my body's never moved like that before, and it kind of like really does like some mystical and mysterious things, what's the other thing I was going to say?
Well, what I was going to comment on, I find it super interesting when you're talking about the body movement. So I'm doing this course, it's called G Life, and it's from this guy, Core Love, who is, to me, is like an artificial intelligence. He's kind of like Spock. He had a seizure when he was a kid, or no, he got hit by a car when he was 10, and he had these repeated seizures. Okay. DMT would activate and you go to realms of gods and goddesses, and he told his parents and they thought he was nuts. So he stopped telling them. So this kept happening. And then in his teens, he learned how to go there with mushrooms, and then he learned how to go there on his own. And he's been coding and trying to figure out what these beings and things have been trying to say. So when I came across his work, I was like, am I nuts because I believe this guy? He had like 480 videos on YouTube that were all 1 to 2 hours long. I had to reference it with a couple high-level friends. So I've been doing this stuff, man, and it's been very, very next level. But one of the concepts in there is your body as its own intelligence. Like your body as like just its own form of consciousness. And he talks about basically that everything's memory. He lost his memory, and I have a friend who started the Brain Training Institute who lost his memory also, worked with the top in Canada on neuroscience, artificial intelligence, all these different things to get his memory back. And they both say it's all about memory, and memory stored in the body. So when we're about 3 to 5 years old, we realize that our body only has like a terabyte of space. So we limit and we go into survival mode. So then what we do is we actually have a 4K camera, HD eyes, but we get 240p because it doesn't want to take up all the space. And so what his course is about getting out of survival mode, which we are in, to normal activation. He says a part of that, the body will just start doing things. And I know people that have done similar things and like, dude, my body is just doing things. Like it'll move, like it'll turn me and I'll go. And they're like, it's its own thing. And these are people I know. I was like, that's messed up, right? So your body just starts to act. And I kind of see it, you know, at Burning Man, you see people that are sometimes anyway, really activated in every single way, business, relationships, clean conscious, and the way they're able to move their body, you know, as like they're unlocked. It's like, and then I thought, I was like, maybe like once you like free up mentally, you just kind of go like, dunk, 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 you know, and you unlock a code within yourself, right? And then boom, you kind of like neurons or whatever starts to happen, right? Central nervous system, who freaking knows? But it's a very interesting concept, man. So I think it's interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, my body exploded, man. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was like whistling songs I've never heard before. I was like, man, what the fuck's going on here, man? You know, like, but yeah, it was intense, man. Like, and there's been a lot of experiences since, but I feel like it was a build up to that, though. You know, like there was a lot of the groundwork that I like had done before, like in terms of meditation and a lot of stuff. You know, like I'd been reading a lot, and you know, it was like it's like progressive steps. You know, step, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know, like this mad thing. You know, with ayahuasca, that was just like, wow. You know, like it goes deeper. You know, that's what I come out thinking. Like I come out thinking, how far does the rabbit hole go, man? Because it's like I didn't know that was possible, you know. And it's like I was open as well, you know. Like if people know me from before, I've always been open to experience, you know. But I was like, okay, wow, it goes really. And since then, it keeps going and going, like with stuff like past lives and you know all these experiences that you can see, you know. Like it's mystical, you know. Like and it really becomes clear, you know. Like it. Especially depending with the community you're with as well, you know, like certain people you conversations have really opened up recently for me, you know. Like before it was like, okay, I'm having these mad mystical experiences on my own in my bedroom and maybe I'm fucking going crazy, you know. And now it's like I'll meet someone I don't even know, you know, and we will look at each other and it'll be like, yeah, we know each other, you know, and you just go, you know, and that's it. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, this person's like in my squad, you know, like and we're good to go, and we know each other from somewhere, you know, like. And yeah, the synchronicities just go so deep, you know, in terms of like, you know, with certain people, you know, like you can think something and they say it, man, and it's just like, okay, we're connected, you know. And I think a lot of it comes down to a good explanation. I'm not a huge sciencey guy, you know, but my understanding of like quantum entanglement is when like photon splits, you know, and you can separate the two photons by infinite distance, alter one, and the other one gets altered as well, you know. And it's kind of like what I was saying about the Big Bang thing, like going back, you know, at one point we were one particle, you know, and like if these particles have split in multiple different ways, you know, there's a chance that certain people are going to hold like more entangled particles than other people, you know. And that's kind of my understanding of like how scientifically you could possibly explain things like a synchronicity and stuff, you know, that we're actually one thing, you know, we're one thing. And you know, it's not that far-fetched to think that someone can think something and the other person can feel it, you know, at the same time, you know, if we're joined in this magical way, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, well, man, yeah, 100%. Well, the last few people that I've had on, I've had Roger Nelson from the Global Consciousness Institute, and he basically calls it the noosphere and how we're all connected. And kind of the way that I see it is that, the internet is almost just the middle ground, so we can grasp consciously we're telepathic, right? Because
Yeah.
we can send information instantly. Now there's just one step, but soon it's going to be no steps. And then I had Tom Campbell on, and this guy's a physicist. He helped start up the Monroe Institute, and he's basically in the theory that we're in a simulation. And when he describes it to you, you're like, oh my God, but it's one part of the whole. And the way that he describes it is kind of the same way like a Zen master will describe it, like
Yeah.
Alan Watts. I love his way. He says that you're a wave in an ocean. You know what I mean? You're a part of the whole, but you are your unique signature in this thing, and you come crashing into the oneness. Just very hard to know and feel in the conscious setting, and especially when your conscious setting is full of external nonsense. Your conscious setting is going to find food, going to work, not being afraid of the neighbor trying to steal your bike. This is ridiculous. Like, where is your consciousness? But through meditation, it's important the work you do before, because for me, I had the experience when I meditated years ago, and somebody described ayahuasca to me, and I was like, I've been there. It happened once. I know what that space is like. And I was like, what is this? So when I go to do ayahuasca for the first time, I'm like, cool. I got all these things that I've written down. I've got these questions, what's enlightenment? What's my purpose? What's going on the planet? And it's just like, boom, gives me the huge middle finger and just gives me like 100 million more questions. And I just sat the whole day being like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. So it's humbling, you get humbled, and it's wonderful in that setting. You could be beside a billionaire and a homeless person and a famous musician and whatever. And when you're in that space, you know that you're equals. You're equals in every single way imaginable. And so when you can get to that point, then one of the important switches I feel when people do ayahuasca, the integration, is to become of service. Like if you're going and trying to get a lot of things, like you can get, like you need stuff, you need to get a job and you need to pay for groceries, but when you think about who am I, how can I serve, what would I like to give, how can this benefit everybody, now you open up another game and a level of fulfillment and collaboration that not only empowers you, but is very necessary at this point in time for humanity.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's weird with ayahuasca because it kind of everything kind of stays the same, but it completely changes at the same time. It's kind of the same, but it's like, oh, like, it's like you get that stare, like you've been there, and experienced that. So yeah, I kind of get that, with collaborations and things opening up. It's kind of like, I guess I went there the first time to try and find my life's purpose. Like that was like my thing. I wanted to find my life purpose, and one thing I found with ayahuasca is the intentions do show up, like, so for me, I've set intentions every time, and after I'm like, that was not my intention, and then like when I start writing and journaling, I'm like, man, now I see, like one time in my second ceremony, I wanted to like go into childhood and all this kind of stuff, and I actually experienced a physical birth, and I was like, it like felt like a physical birth. I was like, what the fuck was that, after that, and then like it was kind of I got what I'd asked for, but I just didn't realize until like I kind of went through it and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, coming out, it kind of like for me, I now just kind of want to be of service and like contribute and meet up with like-minded people and do what is best for humanity, and that's a very complex subject, and it's very subjective because some people think that one thing's great and other people think another thing is great, and it's not just snap your fingers and it's very simple kind of thing, but at the moment things are not fair, like very small group of people own all the property, very small group of people own all the assets, a very small group of people own everything, and my kind of goal is to help rebalance power structure, so like, because we've never had a power structure where the people who are in charge actually serve the people, because they've never really served the people. They've always served like corporate interests and all this kind of stuff, as far as I've seen, so it's kind of like, what would it be like if we actually had a government that was like people first, like, and that's kind of, I don't know exactly where that goes, does it come at the from like disabling destruction of the monetary system and like changing all these kind of things, it could possibly mean that kind of stuff happens, because with the monetary system we have, it's interest, instantaneous interest, so it creates competition between people, like every pound, there's like 20p or whatever interest on it, so that 20p has to be paid, and it only gets paid through people losing, through foreclosure and all this kind of stuff, so it's like, I know that I need money to do stuff, but at the same time, it's kind of like a bit of a disharmony there, and it's like, okay, so what's the solution for that, like, do we, I don't know, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, but I do think that we need to, rethink the way things are, because what's going on in the world at the moment, there's a lot of death, a lot of destruction, and it can all come back to money and people resources and stuff like that, so it's yeah, where do we go?
Yeah, man. Well, that's it, dude. I think that anybody who is really looking around can know something is very off. It's really off if you look at it. Our governmental systems. For me, I remember my dad watching the news, and I was like, yeah, like 12, 15, and it just annoyed me more the older I got. I was like, this guy's lying to you. The last guy lied to you. Every single, like, you don't know that they're lying to you, and they give you Coca-Cola, Pepsi, McDonald's, and Burger King. I was like, these are both choices that are not good. And so then when we say, okay, look, things are broken, monetary system's broken, obviously huge armies and spending trillions on war, not ideal for sustainability. Yeah. Then, how do we solve it? That's the whole thing. It's not one person's job, but, your intention you can control. That's the simple thing. It is a complicated problem that there's no easy solution to. We can't push a button and fix everything. But our intention to be of service, our intention to build a better world, to be kind to each other, to do the best that we can, that's really, really simple. And when you start to speak like that, act like that, how you can, because when you're talking about solution, which one's better? Well, you might have a scientist in Finland and a scientist in USA or UK have differing ideas, but the same intention, but find the same result, because there are infinite ways. They say, like in enlightenment, there's infinite paths home, infinite ways home. There's probably infinite ways to solve a problem. But if you focus on that intention, you're going to start to find people who resonate with what you're doing, and you're going to kind of coalesce, and places like Truth Theory and the big Instagram accounts that are out there, there's a collective of people already saying, hey, this is what we're about. Like, I'm about to go to Burning Man and Symbiosis, and this is like a collective of people where we're constantly talking about, how can we serve and shift this planet in the best way we know how, and we're kind of individualized pockets, but at worst case scenario, we're cheerleaders. It's like, yeah, man, you got this, like, keep doing your thing, that's helping people. And like, even with you, at the worst case scenario when we met, I was like, dude, worst case, you got a cheerleader, keep doing it, Truth Theory rocks. Like, it's a lot of effort to do that, and it's a piece. And as we start to come together, mastering our own pieces, this puzzle is going to come together, because the problem is enormous. And it starts with your own healing, with your own service, and finding yourself, and then you can navigate, because it's a challenging navigation once you wake up, right? What is right? How do we get through the money thing? It's a crazy space, man. Yeah.
I guess a lot of it has to do with, like, well, for me, like, luckily enough, I believe in like miracles and stuff, because I think like we kind of need some miraculous events to kind of come together for people to actually come together and go, hold up, like there's more to this life than the fear-based one that we've kind of created, and yeah, I think there's a lot like to do with like the Earth's geomagnetic field. I wrote an article recently, like these we have these flares, solar flares from the sun and stuff. Every time they happen, everyone goes crazy, but or like certain world events happen. Like recently, there was one like at the beginning of this month, and there's been like the full moon, and then after that was the 8th of the 8th, 17, which is 888, and for me that kind of like is like a significant portal. And then the 21st there's the eclipse, so it's this month has been pretty intense energetically, with like the different dates and the different things that have been going on. And then when you like match that up to like world events, like look at what's going on in America, with all these mad riots and stuff. And then there's like protests going on in Venezuela, Israel, Palestine. There's like some kind of agreement that's happened there, in terms of like some equipment that got put somewhere, which is a step in the right direction with their conflict, Brazil, they're trying to get rid of the president, it's like all over the world there's stuff going on, it happens in like these intense stages. And maybe if we could get a better understanding of what this actually means, then maybe we could learn to navigate it. And this is the problem. You have the information, like the government must know about these like things, like solar flares and all that kind of stuff. They must know like the impact they have, because when you look at the data, they mess with the consciousness. They change the consciousness. They like change the way people behave. They change crime. They change, everything kind of changes with these things. So, if that was in the right hands, the right people, like you could use that to navigate things a little bit more harmoniously. And that's kind of where I'm at, I believe that as people, we need to come together, in terms of our decisions, like where we spend our money, what we do with our money, all that kind of stuff. Like that's like a vote, like that's like, yeah, this place is okay, this place isn't okay, and it's hard. It's very hard because you don't always know. Like sometimes you buy in a product and then you find out that they're using like child labor or whatever, and it's like, fuck, man, I didn't know that. It's like you like unintentionally get involved in something that you don't want to get involved in, but at least working towards being more conscious, at least working towards that, like having that intention to not support things that disharmonious to the planet is a start, and I think most people give a shit. Most people want to do good, and that's kind of there's a simple formula like that I come up with. I think it was after a ayahuasca ceremony that people just need to give more than they take. That's the simple formula. If people give more than they take, then we have peaceful world. But people don't give more. There's a small group that takes so much, that everyone has to give so much to make up for their what they're taking, and ultimately that's the problem. We need to figure out what these guys are doing and stop them from doing it, and create our own system and one that's harmonious and loving and treats people well. That's my dream anyway.
Yeah, man, I love all that. Well, it made me think of a lot of things. Well, you talk about the solar flares, the Schumann frequency, like the Earth's resonance. So I've heard some people say it's changed. Some people say it hasn't changed. That's not true. I don't know. But I do think that, from all the people that I've been talking to, from physicists to, super duper spiritual people with powers, man, I think these people have powers. They're amazing. But everyone has this feeling that we're evolving consciousness. It's a if we all had ayahuasca consciousness, that's a coherent, loving consciousness. And I think one really massive fundamental thing you've touched on a couple of times is going from fear to love, because a fear vibration is low. It's the fetal position. It's whatever's near you, take it and hold it and hoard it, because you're not getting up. You don't feel free. Love is connection with source, spirit, nature, your fellow man, even the birds and the bears. You're not afraid of the bear. He's probably your buddy, So you're very loving and open, and you feel like you are protected, and you feel like you are safe. And we don't live, basically we're inundated with a society that says, be afraid, you know what I mean? Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. And they shove that down your throat. It's a very low vibration. You're not going to work with your fellow man if you think he's going to stab you and steal your car. But that's what they try to make you believe. Is like,
Yeah.
yeah, that might have happened, but I'm sure so much other epic stuff happened also. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and so like, you know, but you zero in on it, and in Buddhism they call it mental nutriments. And so I was at a cafe with a friend today, and I was like, if you just lined up all of these walls with art of like people getting stabbed or horrific tragedies or whatever, we would be like, this place is gnarly. We got to get out of here. Like you would feel it. But if it had sacred geometry, you know, symbols like your hat and yin yang, and it smelled coherent, and there was singing bowl, and it was just all coherent. That's coherence. We're moving into coherence, and it's a vibratory state where people want to cooperate. And so, you know, again, going back to Burning Man, I wrote an article, Ethereum Frequency and Vibration, after my second year, and I was curious why we had playa magic, which is basically the law of attraction. You go to Burning Man and you're like, the law of attraction is horse crap. I don't believe in any of this stuff. But then you're like, oh man, I need scissors. And then 2 seconds later, you'll look and there'll be some bearded guy with a belly, with a big, like with a tutu on, wearing something ridiculous with this huge clippers, and you'll be like, hey dude, like, can I borrow those? And he'll turn over and he'll give you a huge hug, and you'll clip what you need, and it'll be amazing. And this happens all the time, even when people don't believe it. And what I believe, my theory was, through the Heart Math Institute, our heart emits a magnetic field. I think it's 80 times stronger than our mind. So our brain is electrical, his heart is magnetic. So more or less, you have 70,000 people that are cooperating because it's radical self-expression, inclusion, action. But there's gifting. There's nothing that's, you know, it's everybody sitting there is like, do you want a massage? Do you want a mojito? Come jump on our trampoline. It's like, what can you offer? So everybody's in this collaborative field, you know? And so these things, so there's less density and fear. Like, it's a higher vibration of community and collaboration, and stuff just happens like magic. And then that's not to say, because some people are like, I've had a terrible experience at Burning Man. Yes, that does happen. And a lot of times, though, that's what that person needs, because it's like a 7-day psychedelic experience. You know, it's like, well, you know, just like ayahuasca.
Just to like put them through their paces. Yeah, sometimes.
That's what ayahuasca does, man. You know, it could be awful, but then out the other side, it's beneficial, help you rethink. You know, it'll basically interact from where you are. So, you know, with doing this experience for yourself and going through this, like, do you know, what would you like want to offer people? What would you like to see? Like, if you could start to change a little the structure of how people are viewing themselves, and like maybe belief systems, or structurally on the planet, you know, some ideas maybe that it came forth about, like, you know, if you could just implement them right away, what things would you have a thought on what we could do to make this a better human experience and global experience?
It's interesting what you said about Burning Man and everyone giving, because that's how I envision things, like in a harmonious society, you know, like one where people just give, you know, because like people don't realize how much conditioning there actually is, you know, like there's so much conditioning from the moment we're born. There's TV, there's parents, there's schooling, there's everything, you know, like things could be very, very different as human beings. Like it's like this because this is just the way it happened, you know. It's not like there's, you know, like we could have like no monetary system, we could have like all these different variations of the way things could have turned out, you know. This is just the way it turned out for whatever reason, you know. So my feeling is it's not something that you could snap your fingers and it happens overnight, unless there was some kind of miraculous event that happened. But you know, one of giving and where if you're in tune with what it is that you do and what you love, and you know, you're really working from your heart, and there was no, like, everything was provided, say like everything was provided, all your food, your shelter, you had everything that you need, you know, you would still do your work, because your work is what kind of like fulfills you. And I think that's something that I can say for myself, like take away everything, I'm still going to be doing what I'm doing. This is my work. It doesn't matter like if I'm getting paid or if I'm not getting paid. Obviously it becomes very complicated if you're not getting paid, because you have to figure out how to eat and stuff, but I've been doing this for nearly 10 years, and for most of that time I was not getting paid, so it's kind of like, like I've been working up to this. It's taken a while to actually like be able to pay the bills, but at one point I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, kind of thing. So but I think like if we that is an ideal world for me, one where people just have what they need. They have their fundamental needs: the clean air, clean water, good food, and shelter taken care of, and people just radiate to what it is that they love, and share. Obviously that sounds a little bit airy fairy for a lot of people, but for me, I like the sound of that. So yeah, that was that. What was the other thing you asked?
I can't remember now. I was following that train of thoughts. So I think it was something around belief systems.
Points to make, but it's they're kind of
yeah. It was either personal belief systems or personal transformation, and world structures.
That's it. In terms personally, I don't want to sound cliche and like, what a lot of people are saying these days, but I do think like taking care of yourself is very, very important. It's like at your core, if you don't love yourself and you don't like take care of yourself and you don't respect yourself, it's hard to take care of other people. Like, so like some people are caregivers, but there's a lot of like, I use healers as an example, but it could be mothers, fathers, like people who give in general, that burn themselves out and destroy themselves to help others, and if they not taking care of themselves, they eventually like run out of energy. They work, and then eventually you hit a wall and you can't do it anymore, and I think that it's very, very important to take care of yourself, like to really take time to cleanse, to take care of your body, to eat well, drink enough water, really kind of make sure you're looked after, because when you do that, it gives you this ability to shine and radiate, like you meet people, like really good teachers and healers, and they all have like really good practices and really kind of take care of themselves, and at the same time I've met some amazing healers, some really, really good people who just like, it's like they just run out and they can't do it anymore, like I met someone recently, they just hit a wall, and it's just like, oh man, it's a shame like seeing you now from like 6 months ago, that you've just run out, and it's like, if you don't recharge yourself, you're not going to be able to do your work anymore, so I would say that self-care is fundamental, and but that's a box as well, because it's like I'd say like we have like the very fundamental needs, which is breath, like you have to learn how to breathe properly, like a lot of people don't know how to breathe properly, and then meditation is a good practice of breath, but also a practice of single-mindedly focusing on one thing, so I think like a lot of people get lost in meditation practice as the thing, but it's actually a practice for the physical world, I think, so you sit in your meditation, you breathe, you focus, and what you want to do is you want to take that and apply it to your conversations, apply it to your work, apply it to everything, being conscious and single-mindedly focused on one thing. So yeah, I think like breath is very, very important. There's the very fundamental thing that we need. Drinking good, clean water, we have so much crappy water in like coming from the tap, you got to like get the fluoride free stuff, and decalcify that pineal gland, and really kind of take care, eating good food, natural food, stay away from anything with really long words on it that you can't pronounce. Stay away from that shit, because that's the shit that will kill you. Yeah, so just taking care, really, man. I think that's taking care of yourself, and then tuning into your life's purpose and what it is that you do, and just unashamedly being yourself, like if you like some weird little niche thing that not that many people like, if you can shine in that little space, man, the weirdos will come, your little weirdo tribe will come and join you, man. Like that's what I've seen, man. Like you can occupy such a small space, man. Like we have like 7-8 billion people on the planet, wherever it is, all you need is a little bit like that, and you're set, So I think a lot of people are trying to fit into a box that they're not necessarily meant to fit in, and a lot of that comes from deconditioning, taking care of yourself and just going, okay, this may be a little bit weird, this thing I want to do, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's my thing, So yeah, I think once you start to shine, man, it's like, it's a beautiful thing, like, because there are a lot of people who have a lot in like every person has their tribe and their squad, and a lot of the time it can feel very lonely being on this path, like for me it was very, very lonely. It was like had this awakening almost, it's like that's what it was. It's kind of like I started to meditate, and I went from drink, drugs, party, and all this kind of stuff to like sitting every day, like burning incense and, taking magic mushrooms and stuff, and it was like this transformation. And it was like, there's no one else out here who's doing this stuff, it's like, and, with a bit of submission and like, okay, well, what do I like to do? Well, I like words. I like to speak. I like to do poetry. I like to do these things. And, just going to these different places, it's like, okay, this is where they hang out. They hang out where you like to hang out, that's where your tribe hangs out, and it's like just finding out them spots on the planet, because the people are always there, it's just so yeah, it was kind of a weird few years of like feeling solitary and like nothing, like, and then all of a sudden there was this explosion of just linking up with lots of people who are mystical, magical too, it's a bit like X-Men University, they're all there. All the X-Men come out, so but yeah, so I think I went off on a bit of a tangent there.
No,
but...
yeah, buddy. Yeah, that was epic, bro. You dropped so many hammers there that I want to touch on. Like, the self-care thing is so massive. It's energy. One of my mentors will say selfish equals self-care. So if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's the same analogy of swimming. If you don't know how to swim, you can't save a drowning person. You have to be able to take care of yourself before you can help anyone else. And that personal transformation, just because Burning Man's coming up, so I'll just give another analogy, but Burning Man's so wild and magical and insane. You can have all these experiences. Everybody's gifting you different things. You get beer and liquor and booze and maybe other things pretty easily. But the thing that's very hard to come by is water. And you're in the middle of the desert. It's dry. You might have been out all night partying your butt off because you got on an art car that looks like an octopus or a unicorn or some crap. And you're out there with a bunch of people. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my God, it's been like 4 hours. It's so hot now. I need water. And so you'll go up to somebody and you say, hey, Luke, man, do you have any water? And you're like, dude, I wish I had some water. I don't have it. And you're like, okay, cool. Best of luck. And you keep going. That's how I view self-love and personal transformation. If somebody is in need of healing or finding themselves or knowing what their purpose is, and they haven't done the work and they haven't transformed or healed, they're going to have no love energy to give you because they haven't found it within themselves. They've maybe overgave, but they don't have any of that reserve left. They don't have any water or love to give out because they've overextended. And I've seen that a lot in the healer space too, is where people will overextend, forgetting about their own needs. A lot of the healers, and I would say myself is included in this very much so, is that we're very good at giving and really shite at receiving, right? There's some sort of conditioning where it's like give, and then you're in this spot and you're like, how'd I get here? And so I think that, for me, it's something that I'm learning to do, to recognize my own value, to recognize my own worth, and be okay with receiving. Like, I'm always like, if someone wants to buy me something, I'm like, no, like, let me get it for you. Let me. So like, for me, it's been a process, but I'm getting better at it. Someone's like, here you go. And I'm like, thank you. Yes. And it's just, thank you. That's, I get it. Yeah. So we're bringing that in.
Brother. We're entangled in our ways, because I had exactly the same thing, just hard to take, but now I'm just like, yeah, okay. And I give so freely as well, like I bought a load of stuff from Peru to sell on, because I thought it'd be good. Like, I could like do this, it would take care of some of my travels. And I said, this is my third trip to Peru, but I'm talking about the ones before. And I was just at like some drumming circles, and I'm just like, oh, have this, giving people my shirt off my back and stuff, just like, oh, you like my t-shirt? Yeah, and it's like, okay, but now it's okay to receive too, you know, because giving is good, you know, like I love giving, like I don't mind, you know, but I've learned to receive recently, which is, it was a bit of a hurdle, but now I'm just like, you know what, if you want to give me something, I'm gonna say thank you. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And the other, well, that's good. I'm still learning, so I'll keep going through and
Yeah.
and getting some of that. But what I was thinking of is the crap show that we're into right now. A lot of it for me, I think, is not participating in it as much as you can. So you talked a little bit earlier about not putting our dollars towards things that you know are not ideal, you know, that don't serve, or maybe, you know, they test on animals or some stuff, and you know that, then don't buy that shampoo. Buy one
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, a lot of people out there are looking for solutions. And I think that a lot of it is not participating in the illusion, being, oh, well, I have to work this job because I need, what do you actually have to do? You know,
Mm.
I see a lot of people really talking about in Canada and USA, we have a lot of land. And
Mhm.
so we get few hundred acres and we start building these little communities. Food, water, shelter, tiny homes are starting to become more popular,
Yeah.
earthships, things like that, but just simple sustainable living.
Mhm.
Because if we give people another option and you say, hey, we actually have, you know, in Canada you can go to like Saskatchewan or Manitoba, you know, it's fine, it's nice there, but you get,
Mhm.
I don't know, 10,000 acres for nothing. And then you
Yeah.
build up all this amazing stuff and say, hey, look, you're welcome here. They actually have, do you know about that city that they have in India that's
Yeah.
fully,
Auroraville, is it? Sound like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's, it's, you're in the area. Yeah, you're in the
Yeah.
area. I know someone went there and said it was magical. It's
Yeah.
fully their own country, their own thing, and they're doing it. So I think
Mm.
that these models of existence are coming in, and it's just kind of keeping an eye out and putting the energy towards it, right? Even whether it's thought form or communication, and then grounding what you can, but don't take it all on yourself.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. One of the things that I was thinking recently is if you could do that in cities, it would be hard, right? Like it would be quite expensive, you know, like, but if you could buy like some kind of like warehouse space or something like that, you know, get together a group of people and then you're bang smack in the center, you know, and people are like walking past in their suits on their way to work, looking in at people at like 9 o'clock, you know, brushing their teeth in their pants in the middle of the city, you know, like what are these guys up to, you know? I think that would be pretty amazing also, you know, like if you could have that within these communities, you know, within the more capitalistic communities, because then people will see, are these guys actually doing it, and they're actually doing it here, you know? And I don't know, that's it's such a thing, food, right? You know, it's like such a barrier that we don't have food. Like if we had food, like, you know, I mean, obviously we need property as well, but like just food alone, like that's what's entrapping so many people, you know, like, so yeah, I think there's definitely more sustainable solutions that we can come up with if we can organize ourselves in groups and things like that, you know. And another thing is travel, you know, like man, so cheap to go to some places, you know, like literally if you don't have a mortgage and your own place and your own property and stuff, you know, you can go, you know, you can go and you can live if you can manage to just hustle a little bit of money, you know, like you can travel, you know. Peru was pretty cheap being out there for 3 months, you know, like it was cheap, you know. So it's so much cheaper than being in London. So there's so much potential for people to get around and escape from the system, you know. But it's I think there's an illusion that we're trapped, you know, and a lot of people are trapped once you get a mortgage, once you have all this kind of stuff, you know. Often it becomes a very like hard position to step out of and go globetrotting or starting up sustainable communities and all this kind of stuff. But there's always a way out, even if it's like, okay, I'm gonna set up a plan to get out of this system that I'm in, you know, like work towards it, you know, like for me, I'm just the kind of person who jumps, you know, like I'm like, okay, I've had enough of that, I'm going regardless of the consequences, you know. But if you're not that way inclined, you can, work towards something. Intentions are so powerful, like if you have the intention to do something and you want to work towards something, like just writing it down and, setting that thing, it really is powerful, yeah.
Man, 100%. Well, we're talking about just getting all in. Like, I had a friend of mine from, again, geez, Burning Man, but he was an investment banker, living the life, making like 12 grand, 15 grand a month in investment banking down in
Yeah.
LA. He just hated his life, just was
Yeah.
not stoked, super depressed. And like, this is my first burn. I was like, like, you don't have to do that job, right? Like, you could
Yeah.
do a different job. You could
Mm.
quit. And like,
Yeah.
you couldn't even see that as an option. So,
Mm.
6 months later, it's a bit of a process. He quits, travels the world for about 2 years, right?
Mm.
Runs out of money, goes back to banking. He's in banking again, making more money than he did before with a better job. But
Mm.
now it's different. It's not permanent, because
Mhm.
what we need is the food, and what gives us food is money. And that's the trap. But a lot of
Mm.
people, whatever job you're in, well, if you quit it, the chances of you getting a job with whatever you were doing, the matrix is always waiting to take you back. It'll
Yeah.
always be, any moment you want to plug back in, it'll be
Yeah.
waiting with a smile. So get out, but it does take a little bit of strategic planning if you want to do it that way. I'm a jump out kind of guy, eject.
Yeah.
Not, it's a risky business, it's a lot of risky situations doing it
Yeah.
this way. But if you plan a little bit and strategic around it,
Mm.
Thailand, I've been to so many different countries that were cheap, and that's how I would travel. Be lucky, be like, where do I really want to go?
Mm.
And stay for a long time, because I don't want to plug back in. What
Yeah.
experience can I have on the planet to be alive, to learn, to grow, to have time
Mm.
to read, to
Yeah.
have time to
Yeah.
meditate, to sit down. If you're in your pattern every single day and you don't have
Mhm.
time to sit down, I don't have 15 minutes to meditate, I don't have time to read a book, then you really got to look at what you're doing,
Yeah.
um, and assess it and just shoot for a bit, because a 1 week all inclusive vacation, a year is not going to help you really
Yeah.
find, the direction that you're going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And the other thing I was going to touch on, I actually have Michael Tellinger coming on the podcast tomorrow. And this guy
Awesome.
has the Ubuntu movement. Are you aware of Tellinger?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, so the Ubuntu movement is super smart. Anybody listening, go check that out. And it's how to basically create a new society within the existing one. And it's
Mhm.
based on volunteer hours and food. And once we build up the resources, and then the way it's so simple,
Mhm.
and so smart, and so it can start in rural communities, but it could definitely come to bigger cities. And with our collaboration and people just kind of looking at this alternative thought or idea, this is when we start to put the energy in. You keep talking about writing it down. Writing it down takes from 5D thought form and brings it into physical reality. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, it's a simple thing, but very, very effective.
Mhm.
But bro, man, this has been such a epic conversation. It was everything I hoped and knew it could be. I knew we had to reschedule when I saw you in the try to make it happen in Peru, and I was like, no, you got some more work to do, man. You're right in the middle of your own business. Like,
Yeah.
we'll
I
reschedule.
might have still been
Um,
tripping.
yeah, yeah, exactly. He's like, what is that gnome doing on your shoulders? I don't know, man. um, but dude, is there anything that you wish that we had talked about or you want to touch on before we close it?
Anything else? Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather. What's gonna happen?
Oh my God. Well, that's so funny, because I see all these people putting out these like mindset videos, right? So, I wrote the book Zen Athlete, which is sports psychology for all sport. And so these people are kind of like playing on their mindsets, which are really real. But
Mm.
I have a personal hope that McGregor wins, because he's a better ambassador than Mayweather, just flashing money all the
Yeah.
time. And like, my hope is to influence high level athletes to become good human beings and get
Yeah.
better at, and like, you imagine that Floyd Mayweather did ayahuasca and he transformed his life and
Mm.
started thinking about how he could serve with all of that money. You take
Mm.
what he spent on cars
Mm.
alone, and
Yeah.
he could feed countries,
Yeah.
and that influence and that energy and that, and how fulfilled he would be, ultimately when you go to service, it would change that human. So, if
Yeah.
ever there's a day I can get Floyd Mayweather to do some ayahuasca, to just think, because now he's got kids, and you can see that, like, what legacy are you leaving? Like, he still has that opportunity.
Hmm.
Money is energy. People out there
Yeah.
with a lot of money is energy. And
Hmm.
a lot of people like you committed to what is right. It can be challenging financially. I know a lot of people in that space, but they're committed, and it works out, and they figure it out. But the
Yeah.
people with a lot of money, they can put that energy now and support people in different initiatives. So that's my
Yeah.
thought. I don't know. So I hope McGregor, he's a little bit of a ninja, man. So I could
Yeah.
totally see some magic happening, but you can't,
Yeah.
in a practical fighting stance. You cannot hit Floyd. He's such a
Yeah.
bugger.
Logically, he can't win, but I
Yeah.
got a feeling like mentally, he's just bringing a different level of mental game than anyone ever, and psychological warfare, and the things that he said, man, it's just like, I don't think Floyd Mayweather's ever had anyone talk to him like that before, ever, Like, and when he says, "I'm gonna beat you," if we had a real fight, I'd beat you. Floyd knows that's true. It's kind of like, I think he's getting into him. I'm going out on a limb and saying McGregor KO within 6 rounds.
Oh my God, dude, I'm gonna double that down. I'm gonna be in the middle of Burning Man, and like my energy is for McGregor for sure. And just, it'll be such a humbling sandwich, and it could literally transform who he is. Like the other one is John Jones
Mm,
Cormier. Like, I wanted Jones to lose because of how he is, just who he is as a person. I want
mm,
a character like Bruce Lee to win versus, like, I don't know, the Ultimate Warrior,
yeah,
back in the day,
yeah,
because of
yeah.
the effect they have. And again, John Jones is another one of those people
Mm,
with incredible influence. And the UFC for me has been a challenge because they've, I grew up a martial artist. I grew up, learning from Bruce Lee, doing all these kind of things, meditation, discipline, and all this kind of stuff. I'm actually, the computer's on the Tao of Jeet Kune Do right now, um,
yeah.
which is an epic book. But really, you know, we've got these people with extraordinary influence, and they're butchering it through Gladiator because that's what sells. We
Mhm.
got people
Yeah.
like this, such a good book. Um,
Oh,
now they're just bastardizing it with who can, with Roman times where it's a spirit, man. Martial arts is such a beautiful thing. And
mm,
Dana White and all of you, I know it's about money and stuff, but it makes me sad, man. So,
mm,
I want the George St. Pierre's back. I want Anderson Silva back. I want people who represent martial arts for what it actually is, because you don't put your 4-year-old kid in martial arts so he can beat the crap out of somebody,
yeah.
and when you're ages 16 to 24 and you're in high school, and you got to kind of like, it's a part of being a boy. You boy to a man, you got to fight your buddies to figure out your
Yeah.
worth. But once you learn how to fight, you stop doing that, right?
Yeah,
You
that's what
don't
I
want to
found out.
fight. You have
I've never, yeah, I've never fight since I was like, since I learned how to fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, you did some training down there, right? You said you did some training down there.
Oh yeah, there was a guy, a UFC fighter that I trained with a few times, Tony D'Souza. Yeah, he was pretty good, but I didn't train as much as I would have liked to. I went to train, signed up for a little while, but my adventures took me elsewhere. Like, I was going to go and spend some time with the guy, like a few days with him, and really kind of go into some of the things I wanted to learn about, but that didn't happen because I got led. But I've been training like boxing, martial arts for like 10 years, on and off. So yeah, it was been a pretty big part of my life too. So yeah, yeah.
Awesome, brother. Man, dude. Well, it's been a pleasure. We're definitely kindred spirits, man. And I can't wait till
Yeah,
we meet in real life, which I think is going to happen in Egypt, right? You're still going to that?
Egypt, brother. Yeah, I've got a chat on Tuesday about the whole thing, so I'll find out more then. But yeah, I'm looking forward to being in the pyramids on the full moon with you, bro.
Oh my God, man. It's so, what a wild world we're living in, man.
I don't
Like,
know what's
it's
gonna
just,
happen, man. I can't guarantee that we're not gonna like turn into ether and like float away.
dude, neither can I. I saw Nassim Haramein speak in Sedona, and he has this arc crystal that he's coming out with. It's like $1,200, and just, I don't even know, he was describing it to me, and it's just science, just years
Yeah,
of science in a
yeah,
crystal. And he goes, okay, this crystal can be snapped together, and you can do, like, I don't know, whatever number 44 together, right? And he's like, all I'm going to say is we're going to snap 44 together in Egypt. And I looked to my friend Giselle, who's to my right, and I was just like, is he basically saying that like spaceship or some portal or something's going to open up? Like, saying something, right? She's like, yeah, it's like exactly what he's saying. I was like, all right. Like, cause you know, that's their energy fields. There's something, you know, there's something with those pyramids, you know, the more I look into them, the more they're extremely fascinating. They don't accidentally carve into those huge stones those symbols for no reason. And all the really, really smart people I know looking into it are like, these things are vibrational portals, you know, doing something. So
yeah, it would be amazing to actually speak to the sciencey people, because I'm like covered in like Egyptian stuff, man. Like I love it, you know, like it's kind of my thing, you know. But I understand it on like a spiritual level. I look at them hieroglyphs and they mean something to me, man. Like they make sense to me. They kind of like communicate with me. But to hear their side of it, you know, the way that they're, you know, going to explain things. Like I'm just signing up to the course that they have, that I'm going to check all that out, you know, and it'd be good to get more of an intellectual understanding of it as well, you know. And yeah, who knows what's going to happen in Egypt, bro.
yeah, dude. Yeah, I know. Yeah, all the symbols. What what's this? What is that symbol called on your? It's like the raw symbol. It's not raw, is it?
I have Horus.
Eye of Horus. Yeah, so that's your brain cut in half, and then the eye is your pineal gland. You know that, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
So most people would know that, right? But you cut the brain in half, boom, that's the pineal gland right there. And yeah, they
yeah,
showed it. I'm actually level 2. I'm on the 3rd module of the resonance, and it's easy to understand, but he's like the maverick of science. He just went his own way against academia, physics, and proving his theories. And it's
yeah,
very interesting stuff. So I think that we have a lot of science and technology and Mother Earth vibration or spiritual help or who knows, but benevolent help, I feel like is here if we really just push our intentions towards love,
yeah,
cooperation, community, collaboration, just what we know is right. You know, I'm not going to sell out to what I know is, you know, not in the highest interest of all beings, you know, over
yeah.
survival. And that's the only way, and not
Mm.
doing it.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure,
man.
man. I feel you. I see. It's funny, like with the science thing. Like a lot of the stuff I write, people might think that I'm anti-science. I'm not anti-science. I'm anti like science that's controlled by a certain agenda. You know, it's like you have science
Yeah.
and it's really, really controlled. And it's like if you speak against this narrative, you're not going to have a future in science. You know, so it's kind of like, you know, you have people like Graham Hancock and I can't remember the other guy's name, who have gone against and managed to make a career going against like the mainstream narrative, but they're the exception to the rule. Like most people don't get to make a career out of that kind of stuff. They, you know, get shut down and their funding gets pulled and everything, you know. So it's kind of like, imagine going back to the balance in power structure. If we had people who were in service of humanity and scientists that were hired by people who are in service to humanity, you know, pharmaceutical companies that are making things for people to heal and so on and so forth, man. Maybe you know, that's just the future I envision, you know. That's the future I see, man. It's like it, yeah, there's no reason why it can't happen, man. So yeah.
Totally, man. And I've had that thought a few times recently of imagine the best scientists in USA and the UK and China, Norway, Sweden, every single country, they all get together and they collaborate, share resources, share information. But you're right that science is a space that a lot of people don't realize is very heavily influenced, and there's a
Mm,
lot of funding, and it's you got to perpetuate the old model. And Nassim is one of those people that had to go
yeah,
against the grain, not getting funding, and it's very hard to do the research because you need the right equipment to make it, you know, when you're working on high level physics and things like that. But he did it, and he's
yeah.
proving a lot of it. And you know, these renegade people are starting to get some traction, and
Yeah,
ideally we just turn them on, man. So heck yeah,
yeah.
dude.
What happens when all the spiritual community, like all these different communities, kind of get together and join forces, you know, and it's just going to be like this explosion of science meets spirit meets, you know, magic meets everything, you know. It's just going to be like, whew. I'm looking forward to that, man.
Me too,
Yeah,
brother.
yeah,
Well, man,
awesome.
I want to thank you for coming on, and I want to thank you for just everything that you're putting out with Truth Theory, for who you are, and just your commitment to knowing yourself, man, and putting out, and you know, that 10-year grind. I'm currently on that grind. I've been grinding that way for a long time. So I love and respect you for that, because it's not easy. And you're just,
Yeah.
thank God you have like parents or people sometimes you're like, I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but it turns out that I don't have a choice to do anything else. So I'm just going to keep doing this, and hopefully it will work out. So I'm glad it's working
Yeah.
out, man. And you're making a very positive impact, staying open-minded and serving to the best that you know how, man. You can't ask for much more than that. So
Yeah.
love and appreciate you, homie. You're doing it.
Thanks, brother. I just wanted to say one thing. I'm actually putting together some a trip. I'm loosely organizing it. I'm not really like entirely in charge of the organization, but I'm going to be there basically. And I'm looking for other people who want to come in December. We're going to Peru. We're going to be going drinking ayahuasca. We're going to be in the mountains of Machu Picchu, all this kind of stuff. We'll be out there for 3 weeks. So if anyone who's watching is interested, hit me up, send me a message, and we can jump on a call and chat about it if it sounds like something you want to get involved with. And the last ceremony's on winter solstice, which is like the most powerful day of the year. It's the day the Mayan calendar changed. It's all kinds of mad juju going on that day. So if anyone wants to get involved, just hit me up.
Amazing, brother. Well, yeah, I might just send you a Facebook message after, so we'll see. But
Awesome, brother.
sounds amazing, man. Thanks so much for coming on, and thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, thank you for everyone who's tuned in, man, and I'll speak to you soon, brother.
Okay, peace, homie.
Peace, man.